SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Have you been seriously injured? Mama Justice is here for you. Our medical team partners with top-notch doctors, surgeons, therapists, and urologists, ensuring a comprehensive recovery journey. If you've been injured, call Mama Justice today. We're here for you.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
All right, so you have no doubt heard by now the news. If you hadn't, we are devastated around here at SuperTalk Mississippi. Unfortunately, we lost our fine colleague, Lance Tolbert, unexpectedly late Monday evening. And that was discussed this morning on the morning show. He, of course, the producer of Mornings with Richard Cross and also of the Mary Whedon Show. Man, we're just blown away. Rhino and I actually found out about it yesterday, right before the show. I got to tell you, Rhino, I kind of had a hard time getting going yesterday, literally 10 minutes before we walked to our respective locations here in the studio.
Yeah, it's not often that we actually have to keep something from you.
Yeah.
We're usually pretty open and honest about everything we know. There's very little off the record. But in that instance, we didn't want someone close to Lance to find out about his passing in an awkward way. We didn't want it to be them tuning in to listen to the station he worked on and hear about that for the first time. We wanted his friends and family to hear from friends and family.
Absolutely. And it was the right call by management here at SuperTalk. So we were advised before we went on not to discuss it, to give it time, just as you indicated there. But it was discussed today on the morning show. Lucian Smith filling in for Richard. Yeah, we're blown away. Just don't really have any details at this point, really, that apparently he passed away peacefully at his home. That's all we know at this point. Man, he will certainly be missed. He had really perfected his craft, was doing a fabulous job. And, Rhino, as you know, filling the shoes of the late, great Paul Gallo and the now retired Perez, who occupied that time slot for many years, was a tall order. No easy task, but Richard and Lance have certainly stepped up. I think it exceeded expectations. The only reason I say expectations is because you already had such a high bar. The expectation was that the quality would continue, and they certainly did it. And, gosh, I know it's really strange. It got to be difficult for Richard, who's off this week as well. So, but we wanted to get ahead of that and pass it on to you guys now. We are, of course, keeping his family in our thoughts and prayers, and may he rest in peace, man. Just incredible. We are devastated here around the SuperTalk halls. Just can't really comprehend it. I mean, yesterday when Will told us about it, just didn't even know how to process it. Something so unusual, so unexpected.
Yeah, I think the only thing I was able to utter was a word I can't say on the air, and I think I said it 3 times over the span of about 10 seconds. That was all I could muster.
Man, I know. So, and you guys, maybe we were able to conceal it, but I struggled getting going. I couldn't compose thoughts. It's hard enough to do this when you don't have something like that weighing on your mind. You need all your wits. And I didn't have them yesterday, honestly, after learning of that. And, you know, for me on a personal note, Rhino, I had just done the Mary Whedon show as a guest on Friday with, of course, with Lance producing. And he was good enough to crank up the music that he knows that I like. And I was grateful for that, thanked him for that. We had a steady dose of classic rock, of course. And Lance, of course, you would expect him to think about stuff like that. That's just the way he was. But, man, we're going to miss him big time. Wanted you guys to know. Devastating news, unbelievable on the C Spire text line. I hate to hear that about Lance. I always enjoyed hearing him. Also, Tim in McGee says, I did not know about Lance. He had family from McGee. That's exactly right, Tim. He seemed like a fine man. He definitely was. Let's see. Thomas in Greenwood says that he's going to miss his text exchanges with him. He was a character off air. He was, and you know, he was always funny and so upbeat whenever we'd make the swap peers. You know, certainly between the Mary Whedon show or even on Mondays producing the Legal Power Hour show. I failed to mention that on Mondays, and we take over right after that. And he would make his pass through the studio here and make sure everything was good to go before I sat down at this table. And we'd chat a little bit, always asking me about the weekend. And he just was a guy you loved to be around. You know, he had that kind of outgoing personality. You could tell that from him being on the air, honestly. He could engage in conversation with anybody and do it in a respectful and often humorous way. He will be missed, man. Big time. On the C Spire text line, he and I texted often during the show, also on Garden Mama. That's right. And I was a guest on that show a few times as well with him producing. So he was quite versatile. In that respect. Rhino, I should point that out about you as well. I mean, you go from this kind of hard-hitting political content you and I cover here, then boom, you immediately flip the switch over to Rebecca where the content is a little more upbeat, shall we say.
A little more lighthearted.
Yeah. And you need that. I mean, just to kind of cleanse the palate, right? And you do an excellent job of switching gears like that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean that. And you know that's hard to do for a lot of people. And you're fantastic at it. So, especially when I get off on these rants toward the end of the show, and then boom, you got to go straight into that. Always good at making that transition, though. What else we got on the C Spire text line? I hate to hear that about Lance. I always enjoyed hearing him. Yeah, I think I got to that one. The news hit me really hard, says Darren in Jackson. I'm incredibly sad about it. My prayers go out to his family. Lance and I always had good exchanges on the text line. We had plans for him to go hunting this year at the camp. Man, may God rest his soul. I'm glad it was peaceful. Yeah. Damn, just damn. Lance will be missed. Saw him often around the res area. Always nice, absolutely. Such heartbreaking news. Praying for your staff, co-workers, and family. Yeah. We, again, not even sure what to say. I don't have any words. What do you say? I mean, just blown away beyond belief. I struggled sleeping after hearing about it, honestly. Yesterday. It just couldn't get through the day without thinking about hearing that news firsthand. Mark from Gulfport, sad to hear about Lance. Heard him Saturday with Garden Mama, absolutely. Dan in Hattiesburg, I'll miss his quick wit and big school football show. Man, yeah, he was excellent at that. When he'd come in and give us an update, good grief, his rundown was so complete, so comprehensive, so informative, and just moving from one story to the next of everything happening across the high school football landscape in Mississippi. He was really, really good at that. Yeah, Brian said, who's going to step up testing us back now? That's right. I hear you, Brian. He was excellent at that. And you and I could tell because we used the same tool and we could see the exchanges with many of our audience that tune into both shows, and we'd see exchanges between those audience members and Lance prior to that. Yeah, man, really something. We're so sad. And, again, we pray for his family. Man, hope you're smiling down on us, Lance. I know you're enjoying being in the presence of the good Lord. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Hey, this is Bob.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's Dr. Kollin Napier, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network on Middays at 11:05. Rankin Sherling, Associate Director of the Ole Miss Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom, will call in at 12:05 and give us an update from the Declaration of Independence Center at the university. On the C Spire text line, if you didn't join us in the prior segment, we were just discussing the rather tragic passing of our colleague, Lance Tolbert, producer of the morning show, the Garden Mom show, and, of course, Mary Weed show, and also the Legal Power Hour show on Mondays, heard locally. Gerard and Rhino, my heart is absolutely broken over Lance's passing. He was considered a really good friend and always had great conversations. He is going to be extremely missed, and I'm a grown man, but tears wanted to flow. I know we are just listeners, but I listen daily and have for many years. It's the same feeling as I had when Paul passed. It's the same with you two. You were part of my life 5 days a week, agree, disagree, or neutral. I consider us family and enjoy your company every day. Love y'all, and we will get through this. That's from Nathan in Smith County. I really appreciate those words, Nathan. That's well stated. And, you know, it is true, Rhino. You start to feel like you've got a connection, even though it may just be through this text line. There's no doubt. When we often do receive messages from kind of a universe of people that's fairly regular, and you do feel a connection, and you kind of feel like you have a sort of a digital friendship, if you will. And we look forward to coming in here and talking to you guys as much as you do, tuning us in. And that's good to hear, Nathan, that you enjoy the programs and the network, because that's what it's all about, honestly. Yeah, we don't know what to say. And by the way, folks, I know, Rhino, you've responded to a couple of folks who have asked what happened, and your latest response there. If you just want to share that, this is all we know at this point, guys.
Yeah, we don't have anywhere near all the details. All we know is that he was at home, he laid down to rest, and he never got back up.
That's literally all we know at this point. And, you know, as we learn more and family approves, we'll share it with you. But at this point, that's where we're leaving it. And certainly understand that's the natural question anybody has, what happened. And that literally is what has been shared with us. Man. Whew. So, just a hard deal overall. We got to move on, and that's what he would want, of course. And that we shall do. A whole lot of stuff going on. I'll start maybe, as I did yesterday, with giving you an update on the markets, because it's remarkable what happened yesterday, what happened today. The Dow down over 800 points. 800. That's 1.5%. That's a lot. The NASDAQ also in red territory. Rhino, it looks like the funny money's down. The NASDAQ's down 250 points. Funny money's down as well. Everything in the red today, except crude oil. It is decisively in the green, up $5.87. And that's just because escalation of attacks. It looks like Iran continues to have, I would say, more military capability than I think is thought. Our spokespeople at U.S. Central Command have said that the U.S. intercepted an Iranian attack on military bases. Now, that was after a pause yesterday. That sent the Dow into green territory pretty handsomely, 600 points or so. But yesterday, or overnight, Iran started attacking our military bases in the region. So this is risking a return to full-blown war. The president ain't happy whatsoever. I believe he was on maybe Fox News this morning.
Yeah, what's the one with the people all sitting around in chairs? Fox and Friends?
Yeah, Fox and Friends comes on. He was on there, and look.
Shows you how little I watch Fox.
It was a tongue lashing from our president. He said on the show, I guess they had to, I didn't see it, but I'm reading reports about it. I got a notification on it from the New York Post. After this occurred, it became a story. He said that the U.S. will beat the S-word out of, you can fill in the blanks there, guys, out of Iran after this surprise missile attack. So, also Iran reports, or it's being reported, that Iran is going to receive some shoulder launching missile systems from China. So there you go. It just, they're being fed by China, even though we're taking them out. Maybe that's where these missiles came from that they launched on our bases. Who knows, right? And China are a bunch of dang liars, and all they care about is doing harm to this country. So wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if they are in cahoots with Iran to do damage to U.S. military bases in the region, and again, just to wreak havoc overall. So the United States and Saudi Arabia jointly launched strikes on Iran's, what are thought to be their terrorist proxies in Iraq. Iraq, of course, has a history of harboring terrorists. That's what they're known for. And this was in response to some of these attacks. So bottom line is the escalation of the conflict in Iran has got our president super frustrated.
And now there's an overlap between the conflicts in Ukraine and the conflicts in Iran.
What's that?
Ukraine is it's a back and forth between Ukraine and Iran in the Caspian Sea, because there's a supply line between Iran and Russia using the Caspian Sea, and Iran has been manufacturing Shahed drones and shipping them into Russia. So Ukraine hit Iran in the Caspian Sea.
Okay.
To prevent Iranian drones from going to Russia.
So apparently these attacks this morning, it's being reported, were attacking our troops that are stationed in Jordan, is what they're saying. Wow. So the bottom line is, it's just that the chaos that ensues from these attacks has got the markets jittery. And in fact, they're processing a bunch of news today. So that, of course, has caused a sharp rise in the price of oil. So I would say this, folks, don't get comfortable with the price of gas at any level, right? Because whatever it is today could turn around tomorrow and vice versa, or in some shortened time lapse. That's for sure, because the situation is just so volatile and so unpredictable. But the price of oil up $6 a barrel today. That's a lot. That's as much as it fell the other day. Actually, the funny money's now in the green, 61. It's hanging around that $63,000 level. Seems like it's been sort of stuck there for a while.
Yeah, between 63 and 64 for about a week.
Not really moving much, but so you got that going on. You got the Fed meeting today, and there are some concerns that Warsh may increase interest rates. I don't see that happening. I think he leaves them alone. And then you've got traders concerned about this explosion in the AI-related industries, specifically the chip industries. And today, I believe it's Meta and Microsoft that are reporting after the bell. You got Amazon and Apple, I think, tomorrow. So all of that's just got the markets on edge. This affects your money in a big way. Take a look at your accounts and see how it's affecting you. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So I think they're back to full scope operations, but American Airlines, you see that, Rhino? They shut down the whole dang airline yesterday over an IT outage. Kind of made me think about the Southwest similar situation a couple of years ago. But the FAA grounded all of their flights nationwide due to this issue. Are they back up?
I think so, yeah. I don't know if it's across the board, but yeah, they seem to be back in business.
Yeah. Okay, so Reuters is reporting that they have resumed flights after the IT issue forced a brief
Yeah, I just don't know if it's
down.
all flights.
Okay, gotcha. Well, so that was interesting, though. I saw that come across my wire yesterday. Like, FAA, it didn't say why, right? But FAA shuts down America or grounds all American Airlines flight. And I was thinking, wait a second, that's a pretty big deal. That's a major airline that serves airports throughout the country, including here in Jackson.
I heard about it through a Home Alone joke.
Really?
Somebody was joking about, well, what do you expect for American Airlines? They let Kevin McAllister get on a flight to New York while his family was headed to another part of the country.
That's true. That's pretty good. Well, that was evidently a quick resolution. Not exactly sure what the glitch was, but something happened. Somebody asked on the C Spire text line, what are you guys talking about with respect to the funny money?
Yeah, Brian asked, what do you mean by funny money in stocks?
Explain that.
I told him that's the name I've given to Bitcoin. I call it my funny money.
That's right. Chris from Oxford says, Dr. Anthony Fauci is the biggest coward on the face of the earth. 70 times. 70 times today it's been reported. 70 that he's taken the fifth. Man, this diary, what is up with that dude? That is one sick little monster is what I'm going to call him. Is there a bigger narcissist on the planet than that guy? And he's like in his 80s, right? I'll give it to him. He doesn't look like his age. But it's the standard on the advice of counsel. I'm taking my Fifth Amendment and, my constitutional right. Okay. We got it in your dang diary, what you said. Somebody got pretty mad at him. Was it a senator or a House member said, who the F do you think you are? Or something to that effect. But, Rhino, this is a situation where one man's hubris caused so much harm, damage, carnage across the world. One man's arrogance, one man's hubris, one man's obsession with attention to himself. You heard this, he talked about in his diary. He was like obsessed with Joan Baez, who's a has-been from the 60s, a musical artist that just constantly wrote stupid protest songs, as they're called. And who was the other one? There was two people two female artists kind of from that era that apparently he had dinner with or he talked to quite a bit. What a sicko this guy is. I heard that, this morning right before we came on the show, some entries in his diary about talking about his discussions with Joan Baez. Oh, my gosh. So, what Rand Paul is giving him the business. What's going on? This is an update. Wait, what happened here? Rand Paul kicks out Dr. Fauci's lawyer at the hearing. Please remove him. That's hot off the press. What in the world? And then apparently Senator Hawley, and I'm no fan of Senator Hawley, he has embarrassed Fauci over his refusal to testify. He asked him, what color is the carpet? That's pretty good. So he wouldn't say anything. He pleaded the fifth with, what's being said is zero legal justification. So I think that's why maybe the lawyer got kicked out. It's because some legal experts are saying you don't have the right, I guess, to invoke the fifth, given the questioning, the circumstances, a little over my head from a legal perspective. But yeah, and I'm watching a little video, I know, of the lawyer packing up his briefcase and headed out the door. Who carries around a briefcase anymore? Who does that? Well, that's like your old-style legal briefcase with a bunch of papers in it. Yeah, got removed. Yeah, some of the stuff, guys, if you haven't seen from his diary, apparently he and Bono had a bit of a bromance as well. Have you seen that? Oh, man. All this was and Jake Tapper. I'm not really surprised by that. One of his entries had dinner over Jake Tapper and over at Jake and Jen Tapper's home in D.C. Terrific couple. He had to write that in his diary. Gee whiz. But he and Bono apparently became synonymous with addressing the AIDS pandemic. So that
was when Fauci got his first taste of the limelight and his love for being in front of the camera.
Oh, okay.
Was when he was making wild theories public about AIDS in the early 80s. Like, I think he went on camera and said something about it's possible to contract AIDS if you live in the same home as someone with AIDS.
I hadn't heard
and
that.
then, like, a year later, he had to come out and recant and say, no, that's not how it works.
Oh, my gosh. So, apparently, he and Joan Baez developed a relationship after she painted his portrait for her Mischief Makers art series during the COVID-19 pandemic. Man, how old is she? And she's got this Mischief Maker art series. That's crazy. She also has featured your favorite Greta
Thunberg
and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's old Joan Baez and her art series. So he was all ecstatic because he made the cut, and she did a portrait of him. Good grief. Dude, what is he, a virologist or an epidemiologist by trade, whatever his medical practice specialty is? Can't you just be that? You're not a celebrity. But I guess all the media attention turned him into one. I'll say this, man, the president, he took Fauci to task as well. I'll read to you what the president posted this morning on his Truth Social platform. He said many more people died of COVID under the Biden administration than under the Trump administration. Operation Warp Speed was a spectacular success. In fact, many say one of the most successful things ever done by an American president. That, of course, referring to the creation of the COVID vaccines. He said, I overrode Fauci on this. His ideas were, in all caps, crazy. Also, I said from the beginning that the virus came from the laboratory in China. Fauci disagreed, always trying to protect China. And then he said, I inherited Fauci, who was there since the 80s, but with each passing day relied less and less on him. He made too many bad calls, like on, in all caps, masks. Remember, at the beginning, he was an anti-masker. Then he switched to a super masker. Oh, man. He said, I took him out of play. And then along came Sleepy Joe Biden, who made Fauci a king. I called Biden to tell him Fauci was no good, either didn't have a clue or was dishonest. The call was well received, but sadly not acted on. Biden went on to give Fauci very destructive power. The rest is history. That from President Donald J. Trump. There's so much crazy stuff in his diary, we could consume a whole show going through the entries. You'd say, wait, that came from Fauci? Just all kinds of crazy stuff about him being achieving celebrity status and being guests on all these various media outlets. Him and Cuomo at CNN, they had quite the bromance as well, right? It seems like every night it was Cuomo and Fauci on CNN talking about this stuff.
You got to remember, he had to take meticulous notes to give to his ghostwriter to write his memoir so he could make an extra couple $1 million in his retirement.
That is very true. The whole thing's
That's
just
how everybody
disgusting.
in D.C. does it.
Look, this
when
guy...
you're on your way out, you make sure to find a good ghostwriter and give him all your stuff.
That is unfortunately true, what you're saying. That is true. It's like a license to get filthy rich. Doesn't matter what the subject matter is. Just the fact that you've become some well-known household name as he did, and so whatever you stick in a book, crazy people are going to buy it, I think is the bottom line, and you're going to get enriched as a result of it. Man, we're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Stay with us.
For all your...
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Get your motor looking for adventure in whatever comes our way. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So now it looks like that the good Dr. Fauci has invoked the fifth 100 times. 100 times. That's incredible. I don't even see how you could get that many objections in over that period of time. That's just incredible. So I don't know what's going to happen. That's just incredible to even think about, that you're up there on the Hill and you're a coward, right? Somebody said that on our C Spire text line. Fauci has invoked, right off the press, the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times now. So, I mean, I don't know what are we going to do. Prosecute this guy or what? Did he break any laws, or are we just gathering information at this point? It was stupid on his part to use, again, government-issued technology to record and maintain his diary. That was dumb. Because, again, as we talked about yesterday, that's all bets are off at that point. You don't have any privacy when you're using your employer's systems. In this case, the federal government. Federal government has access to whatever you create and store using the systems it allows you to use. And that's exactly what happened here. And I guess Rand Paul, somebody figured that out. Boom, there's his diary. Because that's been a while since he was keeping it there. And
I think it was RFK Jr. that found it.
Oh, okay.
Or somebody under him.
I got you. Interesting. Well, that's something that was just a bad call on his part. If he intended for his diary, as most people do, to be private, who knows, though, Rhino? He may not have cared. You said yesterday, I think, he thinks he's above all that, and so he could do it with impunity. And he may be such a dang narcissist, he wants people to find out. Thinks they would enjoy, be entertained, be impressed with all these stupid entries of him and Joan Baez and Bono, and then telling the public, this is what really is perturbing, telling the public one thing, but writing something different, right, in the diary. Isn't that right? Concerning masks, concerning the origins. Because to the public, didn't he consistently, until kind of we put the pandemic behind us, didn't we consistently hear him say that, oh no, it came from the wet market? But in his diary, he said, yeah, we think it came from the lab. I think I'm getting this right. But it was exacerbated. It was intensified. It was enhanced from the wet market. But at some point, animal to human transmission occurred.
Came from the Wuhan lab.
Right, in the lab, right. So I think what is what he wrote was that it came from the lab, I guess infected an animal, and then at that point it transferred. Maybe the wet market kind of gave that some legs, so to speak. But it came from the lab. I think that's pretty well established now. And, of course, where there could be perhaps some liability on his part, I'm honestly not sure, but it's his agency that provided the funding to that lab. It literally allocated some of the money it gets from the taxpayers to this lab in China for this gain of function research that everybody said, man, don't do that. Be careful. Sounds to me like he defied that and proceeded, facilitated it, financially at least. So he's invoked the fifth 100 times. Absolutely incredible. Ben from Madison says, terribly saddened to hear about Lance, thinking and praying for his family and all of his colleagues at SuperTalk. Appreciate that. Ben, as are we. Gary from Tishomingo said, Joan Baez is just another radical lefty. Oh, no doubt. I mean, I just remember her rising to fame when I was a kid in the 60s, and she had all those crazy songs. Perhaps, Rhino, she's best known for the night they took old Dixie down, which is pretty much taking a shot at the South overall, is what, if you listen to the lyrics of that song. That's kind of maybe the quintessential Joan Baez protest song, but she's up there with Jane Fonda. They just hate this country, honestly. And that's who Fauci was endearing himself to. Yeah, Ken Brendan pointed out, apparently he had an obsession with Julia Roberts, talked about her numerous times in the entries in his diary. That's absolutely true. I saw that. And then I didn't know that they appeared together on web calls and stuff. I saw some of that. We're taking a break right now. Fox News, SuperTalk News, Dr. Kollin Napier on the other side.
Of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this Hump Day. We welcome now Dr. Kollin Napier. He's the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, acronym MAIN. Dr. Napier, good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Gerard. Good to see you. Glad to be able to join.
You bet. So give us an update from Maine, and also talk about your recent promotion to Chief AI Officer.
Man, a lot of good stuff going on for the state of Mississippi right now in terms of AI being led by Maine, the Mississippi AI Network. This is a big change for me personally, stepping into this role. And I think, a lot of people would assume this means spending all day testing the latest AI tools. But, the reality is the job is much broader. And that includes helping, shape the statewide AI strategy across all sectors, even getting into cybersecurity policy, responsible usage. So it's kind of a step up to what I've been doing, but that greater focus and strategy for the state now and going forward.
And we should point out that the organization, MAIN, the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, one of the first in the nation, really, of its kind, of its category. And I think it's gotten a lot of attention. It's really put Mississippi on the map as being a leader rather than a follower in this evolving technology.
Correct. And the state of Mississippi is way ahead in the AI space right now when it comes to workforce development, training, and education. Definitely the first in the nation to put this together. And what Mississippi has done is create a replicable model that other states can look at and see, oh, that's how it can be accomplished. Not to say that Mississippi is doing everything perfect and that it's always applicable to other states of various sizes and economic development there, but we're showing the art of what's possible. And that's why I have legislators and, institutions and others across other states in the nation calling and asking me, who are you, what are you doing, and how are you doing it?
Interesting. So I know you have been in demand as a speaker, as a panelist, as a presenter, as an educator on all things artificial intelligence. And I track you diligently in that respect. Tell us about some recent events you've been involved in.
So I just got back from Atlanta, Georgia this past week. Involved with one of the largest accrediting bodies for higher education, known as the acronym is SAC, COC. It's a Southern Association. of colleges, and a lot more words there. But it was really a 2-day event that I led, a workshop session that included over 300 institutions around the nation wanting to learn more about AI adoption and implementation. Like, yeah, we know there's a chat bot. Yeah, we know we can do these things. But how do we move from just conversation and discussion into vision and strategy? And I really think that's where we are across both education and industry right now. We have the familiar sense of, hey, we've got a chat GPT or a Copilot. We know the tools are there, but how do we move into implementation, adoption, understand, risk associated with that, challenges, concerns, but also seeing the opportunity and the innovation for the future of work.
Yeah. So, Dr. Napier, I know you've done numerous presentations and little educational sessions around the state, and many of those who attend have never interacted or utilized AI whatsoever. And you introduce them to this, and then they experience it for themselves. What sort of reaction do you typically get?
When you put people in the driver's seat and they are able to navigate the car and change gears and speed up and slow down and be in control, it changes perception dramatically versus what you read or see online or on the news. And it really gives them the opportunity to experience it for themselves. It's one thing to talk about any new technology or skill. It's another thing to actually get hands on keyboard, as we like to say, and have that applied usage. And one of the ways we did that here recently, we brought in Anthropic, who is the company behind Claude, to the state of Mississippi, had a packed room of state government officials from all walks of life, and they built AI applications that same day. So it was hands-on, they learned, they built something, and as soon as they left, they knew the steps they needed to take back to their agencies to build better and do better. And so it's that same mantra we're trying to do through Maine, the Mississippi AI Network, in empowering Mississippians from all walks of life to see the potential and the possibilities of AI now and going forward. I
just wonder how many come maybe a bit reluctantly to these sessions. And they're thinking, this really isn't for me. It's not of any practical use for my job. And then when they get exposed to it and they think through how it could be applied to real world, everyday use cases, it's like the light bulb goes off. And then I've watched this my whole technology career. Yeah, I don't think I have a need for that, to, I hate this, to a few months later, how did I ever live without this? That's just usually the cycle. Are you seeing some of that as well? People are a little surprised how this may be of value in their day-to-day routines.
100%. And part of that conversation starts with the realization of how we already use it every single day.
Yeah.
From our online shopping to our media intake to our navigation to our healthcare systems and so much more. And so as soon as we start making connections and making things relational and a reality, and then making it important to an individual given their professional interest or their personal interest, that's when the light bulb goes off. That's when the fireworks start popping and they understand, here's how it can and will and should empower me as that human in the loop, that decision maker. AI is not meant to be a decision maker, right? It's meant to enable you to shift from task execution into judgment and oversight. And that's what we're seeing across the globe right now, of this expansion and explosion of AI in all markets.
It's a great point you make, because many people that may say, well, I really can't figure out how that could help me, unwittingly are using it. Just in their normal routines, it's functioning, operating, working in the background. For almost everything we consume, certainly any digital interaction that we engage in, right?
Correct. And, part of it has to do with just the literacy. It's educating whether it's Mississippians, whether it's other folks around the nation. We just don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
But as soon as we have that opportunity to learn and grow, we see possibilities. And so that's why we do the workshops. That's how we have no cost online training and certification programs for any occupation, any sector. AI is not just for a specific group. AI is for all. And that's what we make sure in Mississippi, everyone understands that and they have equal and accessible opportunity to achieve that.
And you made the point as well that it's not designed to replace human decision making. It's not really built for that. But couldn't we also say, Dr. Napier, it really doesn't replace human creativity and human innovation, because what it generates and produces is simply using as its inputs what other humans have already created. The value of the tool is it's able to filter and leverage and process and utilize all that in a short period of time.
Correct. And you can see it, it has a wide range of knowledge, and that knowledge has been built from humanity over time through all walks of life. And, while it's in the name, being generative AI, it's generating new thoughts and ideas on the surface. If you dig deeper, you can see, hey, it's just able to aggregate and process and research and do things that humans have already, done up until this point. But it is allowing us to see breakthroughs in various areas, such as medicine and drug discovery, such as mathematics here recently, where we're able to innovate faster and cheaper, and that will pay dividends in the long run for much of the innovation America is doing right now.
We got a break right now. If you can hang around with us, want to dig a little bit into this recent OpenAI is escaping its sandbox and talk about kind of some things we need to be on the lookout for as a society with respect to AI. We got Dr. Kollin Napier, the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network. We're coming right back.
Need cash?
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge.
Huge news.
Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We're visiting with Dr. Kollin Napier. He's the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, Maine. So, Dr. Napier, before we went to break, I kind of teased that you and I would talk a little bit. I know that we've exchanged some pieces on this recent breach where OpenAI's system was able to jump out of its sandbox, essentially, and go attack another AI platform, Hugging Face. Unprecedented, but from all accounts, looks like this could have been prevented. Is this just growing pains, you think, in this kind of evolutionary phase, this infancy of the creation of this technology that developers need to be aware of and really need to work together to figure out a way to implement some guardrails to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is what we call R&D. It's research and development. And I think, you see the sensationalized headlines about what's happening, but the reality is this was not a rogue AI trying to take over the internet, right? OpenAI was intentionally pushing one of its most advanced AI systems to its limits within a controlled cybersecurity test. Now, what they learned is that the AI became very creative about achieving that goal, even finding the shortcuts, finding areas where researchers did not expect the system to go. But that's exactly why it's in a controlled environment and why we are looking at safety evaluations, why we're looking at guardrails to understand, hey, we want to make sure that these capabilities don't go out to a bad actor and they are able to exploit anything, right?
Yeah. So, and let's also clarify that the tool, the OpenAI platform, was able to do this because of human-created information that it had access to, right, to understand how to get out of the sandbox and then how to go attack a Hugging Face.
Yeah, and we've seen, of course, the comments of this is Terminator, this is Skynet. I mean, whether it's this story or any other news story, you hear that. But again, the AI wasn't trying to escape because it wanted freedom. It was simply optimized to achieve a goal it was given.
Yeah.
Let's take a scenario of imagine telling a student to get an A on a test, but we are not telling them they have to earn it honestly. We just say, hey, get an A. If that student goes and steals the answer key, then guess what? They technically still achieved the goal, just not in the way that you expected or intended, right? And that's exactly what happened here. The AI is optimized for the objective, not the spirit of the assignment.
Oh, that's good. That's a good explanation. It's a great analogy. It's exactly right. So, look, we create these tools to learn from themselves. That's why we call it, right? Machine learning is, oh, wow, the more I see these patterns, and it's all math under the covers there, that makes sense. So I can apply that here. And that's what happened. It wasn't like I got a mind of my own nefarious exercise here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing I always say anytime I give a presentation, a keynote, today is the worst AI will be. It is continuously improving because we are continuously training it on new information. We're finding better, faster, cheaper ways to train. And because of that, we're going to see a continuous evolution of capabilities of the models. But as much as we're pushing out the frontier and the public facing, your paid subscriptions, the R&D, that research and development and evaluation and guardrails on the back end is continuously churning. I mean, the stuff we're seeing in the public space, they had that set 6 months ago, right? The things that will come in the next 6 months, they're working on now. So it's a constant churn of development, of understanding. And people also need to understand, too, this is very much still in its infancy when we talk about generative AI. These tools, these capabilities from a public standpoint are roughly 3 years old. Just like an infant, they're going to do good things, they're going to do bad things. We are learning how to raise it and teach it right. And so the same can be applied in the scenario with AI or generative AI.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg published a piece in the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was yesterday, and he says that this country should accelerate AI development, not restrict it. And interestingly enough, Satya Nadella from Microsoft, chairman CEO of Microsoft, he just echoed those sentiments, and he actually retweeted Zuckerberg's tweet where he's sharing the article he wrote in Wall Street Journal. He said, a good read from Mark, establishing a frontier ecosystem that empowers people and orgs everywhere is what we collectively need to build together. And we are seeing a lot of cooperation. It's almost like friendly competition, if you will, right, amongst all the developers, more so than the hyperscalers. That's a little bit more dog-eat-dog competition there on the infrastructure side. But certainly in the development of AI, it seems like there is more co-opetition, if you will. What are your thoughts on that?
And I agree. And Zuckerberg's message was simple. America should build the best AI and not slow itself down. And we are seeing a alignment across our industry in the U.S. where you have a letter floating around right now. I think NVIDIA first kicked that off, but it's signed by NVIDIA, your Microsoft, your Meta, your IBM, OpenAI, and others, asking the U.S. government to not broadly restrict research and innovation, primarily as it pertains to what we call open weight or open source models or AI there. And so, their argument is to, of course, punish the bad actors, but do not limit the innovation for everyone else, from a higher ed standpoint to an industry standpoint and anywhere in between. But it's also showing kind of some clear divide about perspectives and perceptions, because you have some companies, not to say they're against that, but others we've seen have not yet signed that letter. So they're kind of trying to play both sides, if you will.
And Zuckerberg also said in his piece that this country shouldn't ban access to China's AI systems as well.
Yeah, and it's the thing you kind of have to stay two steps ahead of the competition, right? And the best way to understand the competition is to have access and see what that is. Now, generally from an industry standpoint, that's needed for competitive advantage. From the public-facing standpoint, I can understand, it's a security concern as well. But, it helps push everyone forward at the end of the day, having access to the latest, greatest, either frontier models or open weight models. And we've seen this recently with the one out of China, Kimi 3, that just came out, that is, allegedly bypassing, Fable and Opus and GPT on several of these benchmarks. And it's showing that, hey, China is catching up or having a lead in some areas. So what do we need to focus on more from American innovation?
Yeah. Well, to a great extent, these tools are so powerful, and much of the functionality is available for nothing. It's free. There's no charge. And, of course, if you want something more powerful and have other specialized use cases, there are obviously fees associated with that. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is, even let's think about from a business perspective, even the smallest businesses can have access to the same power that the largest can. And so the scale associated with being big and the benefits from a business competition perspective almost are eliminated because the smallest have the same power. Correct.
And it comes down to, ease of use and setup and capabilities. Obviously, you have your frontier and you're paying your premium for that ease of use, but there is just as many open source or open weight models that you can use at zero cost for anybody, any sort of business, any sort of individual. And it's available right now.
Yep, it's awesome. Appreciate it. Dr. Kollin Napier, the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network. Appreciate it, Dr. Napier. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gerard.
We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We'll get to it later, but that's the great Toto, and we got tickets to give away. The legendary rock band Toto is coming to the Brandon Amphitheater on August the 5th. Toto will be joined by Christopher Cross and the Romantics. You can get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. They're on sale now, but we're going to give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Toto later on in the program. The Sports Talk team, Sports Talk Mississippi, they're going to the Diamond Youth Baseball World Series on Friday at the Laurel Sportsplex, Highway 84 West in Laurel. There will be teams from 11 states competing in one of the South's premier youth sporting events, and the Sports Talk team will be bringing it to you live. The Dow now down 875 points. There's concerns about this Fed rate decision later on today. I'm a little surprised by that's even an issue, a factor in the markets today, but it certainly is. Brandon from Cleveland said the reason Senator Rand Paul, had Anthony Fauci's lawyer removed is that he kept speaking without being called upon, and he sat at the table when told not to. He was told he was not invited. Well, that's all well within the rules of Robert's Rules of Order, which is what we use in conducting such proceedings in the United States Capitol, as well as throughout other official meeting settings. Pretty common. Yeah, you don't speak unless you're called upon, and you certainly don't sit where you're not invited to sit. It's a meeting being conducted by whomever sponsored it, and the purpose is to hear from those who are requested to appear and testify. And you work those things out ahead of time. Who can sit at the table inside the rail, as they call it, to actually testify to those sitting in the front that are shooting out the questions. So, good for him. Let's see. What else? Jeff in Forest County shared, I have a fond memory about Lance. He once answered a text I sent to Garden Mama about what I thought were pataga worms that I pulled off a tree to go fishing. I thought it was catawba, something like that. Caterpillars?
Keep reading.
My bad. I'm sorry. He kindly responded that they were instead called catalpa. Okay. Yeah, exactly. You said potaga. It kind of sounds the same, though. I can't remember the trees they used to like to hang around in, but, man, when I was growing up, in fact, we called them catawba worm trees, for lack of a better term. I had a couple of neighbors in my old neighborhood in West Jackson, and at whatever time of year that they're hatching, they're multiplying, the tree would just be filled with them. And if you walked under the tree, they fall on you. The worms would. I recall them being kind of about 1.5 inches long, maybe about as big and round as your little finger, black with yellow, green kind of stripes is what I recall. Yeah, they were good fishing bait, though. Just had to harvest them out of the trees. If you stood under the tree, plenty enough would fall down. You could just pick them up, put them in your little container and off to the lake or pond or wherever to fish. I don't know what kind of tree it was, though. I remember it having big leaves, because that's what they were.
I think it's the catalpa tree. I think that's because it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. The worms eat the leaves, the tree grows leaves back.
Okay. Well, I knew they were there because they were chomping on the leaves. As I recall, they were like big, a little bigger than the palm of your hand, lime green, leafy, moistures. That's what I think they liked. Leaves, and kind of had a white bark, as I recall, sort of a smooth bark, a texture to the tree. I'm remembering this from when I was 10, 12 years old. So, interesting. That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that story, Jeff. Kat and Brandon said, we save them in cornmeal in a jar in the refrigerator for fishing later. That's cool. They will squirt you in the eye when you stick a hook in them if you weren't careful. I do remember that. That's right. But I don't think it was poisonous or toxic in any way. But, yeah, I guess that was a protection mechanism maybe. Yes, they call them catawba worm trees. Kind of look like a cottonwood. That is from Jason in Brookhaven. The squirt you in the eye comment was from Mike from Madison. Interesting. Lisa in Clara, Mississippi said, that is what they are called. We have 4 trees that have had new worms 4 times this year so far. Wow. I hadn't seen them around in a while. I really haven't. That's incredible. Clinton's famous drummer, Keith Carlock, is touring with Toto. I didn't know that. How about that?
He's played with all kinds of acts. I mean, he's touring with Toto. He played with Sting. I think he played with Christopher Cross at one point.
Yeah.
Played with Steely Dan. I want to say he was on a James Taylor album.
Yep. Interesting. I didn't know that. Appreciate you pointing that out. Of course, the founding drummer, Jeff Porcaro, may have been the greatest rock drummer of all time. Maybe I'm partial a bit as a drummer, but good gosh, he was so good. And, of course, he tragically passed away in 1992. But, man, and there's still recordings of lots of his fills, his licks, his kicks, his grooves. So dang good, man. One of the most recorded session musicians also in history because he was so versatile and such a great drummer.
Yeah, it looks like Carlock joined Toto in January 2014, replacing Simon Phillips.
Okay.
And then he was on every track for Toto 14, and then left them in May of 2014 to tour with Christopher Cross. Maybe that was later.
Yeah.
But then after his touring with Christopher Cross, Toto's touring drummer, Shannon Forrest, announced he'd be leaving, so Carlock went back to Toto. Okay.
Yeah, so just a quick Google search, as you like to say, the Google box, Toto, drummers. Of course, you get Jeff Porcaro, and it shows, his time on the planet, 1977, 1992. Simon Phillips, 1992, apparently passed away in 2014. And then Keith Carlock. It lists Keith, you were just talking about, since 2014. That's what it says. So, wow, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. So, we're talking about Toto because they're coming to the Brandon Amphitheater on August the 5th, and we got some tickets to give away a little bit later. So, and appreciate everybody for sending in their various stories about our colleague, Lance Tolbert, who tragically passed away on Monday, certainly will be missed not only within this company, but across the airwaves of Mississippi on SuperTalk Mississippi. What an asset he was to all the shows that he produced. And so, yeah, we'll miss him big time. I got to just give a little kudos to my friend Dr. Kollin Napier, whom we just had on. I got to tell you guys, we're blessed to have him and his organization. I understand artificial intelligence, very controversial. A lot of folks have legitimate concerns, and those concerns should be heard, no doubt about it. But I think we have to acknowledge here, Rhino, it ain't going away. And even
I come down a little bit differently on the concerns because the vast majority of concerns have been answered if they would just bother to do a modicum of digging.
That is absolutely
Instead
true.
Of just taking whatever the AI-generated meme on Face page tells them to think.
Well, is it fair to say, though, that task is a bit more difficult when you've got elected officials, including here in the state of Mississippi, candidates in Mississippi, in other states, that are like running on the platform of being anti-AI and anti-data center. And honestly, if you're anti-data center, by extension, you're anti-AI, because that's what we need the data centers for. So it doesn't help, and they are distributing information, shall we say, and content that lacks truth as a basis. Is that one way to put it there?
It's a nice way to put it.
Okay. And that would be the greatest rock vocalist, in my humble opinion, of all time, the great Steve Perry, Foolish Heart. Man, that's a tune that showcases his voice like no other.
Up of Mississippi, covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert, Middays with Gerard, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. I've seen it before. It happens all the time. You're closing the door. You leave the world behind. You're digging for gold. You're throwing away a fortune and feelings. But someday you'll pay.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So, yeah, then besides the dang Fed meeting today and talking about interest rates, you got big-time earnings reports coming out as well. Today it is Meta and Microsoft. Tomorrow it's Apple and Amazon. So, I mean, in a 2-day period, you got 4 big-time tech companies announcing their performance. This article from Mark Zuckerberg, I'm impressed. Sometimes he can be little whiny, I would say, almost maybe a little immature, but this is really good. And what he's really saying in terms of we should accelerate AI development, not restrict it. Of course, the restrictions would come from government. And anytime I think government attempts to involve itself in regulating something, especially something like this that moves at light speed, they end up causing harm to the efforts and blunting innovation. And while there's no doubt this stuff is powerful, and in the wrong hands, it could be malicious and used for malicious purposes. Let's be honest, Rhino, China would like nothing better than to achieve technical superiority in AI and quantum and use that maliciously, deleteriously against this country.
Because they've already proven they've got about 35-40% of the population by the short hairs just with social media algorithms.
No doubt about it. And this recent bombshell report, which wasn't a bombshell to me, we talked about it. Oh, they were able to get through the county-level voter roll registration systems and collect information about American voters. Call me shocked. That was nothing. A high school hacker could do that. And we're like, oh, my gosh, China's got, where you been? That was easy. Again, I'm going to point out, the bigger thing is, and it proves it, I've warned about this, the biggest problem is they shut those systems down. They seize control of them through ransomware or some other electronic means such that we could not conduct elections. That's by far the bigger threat, the bigger risk. And by the way, that didn't require artificial intelligence to do that. That was a pretty simple task. So are we shocked that the cyber protection systems, if there are any in place, at the 3,300 counties in the country were strong enough to protect against this penetration by China? No, we're not shocked at all by that. So,
I mean, just compare the speed of innovation and technology versus the speed of literally anything getting done in government. You got a perfect example happening right now. COVID was 2020. It's July 2026, and they've just now got Fauci to sit there and keep pleading the fifth.
That's
so
true.
If you have to update your phone once or twice a week because of a new security update or a new feature, and it takes 6 years for the government to even sniff accountability on screw-ups?
So true.
How do you think the government's going to handle any kind of cyber attack?
They're going to go meet about it. That's what all these moratoriums are so stupid. What do you do? We're going to go study this a while. What the heck is there to study here? Think about all the aspects of data centers, for example, and AI. AI I can see because that's a way more involved. It's not as finite, right? It's a what if. Data centers is not. I mean, we're talking about physical infrastructure in this case. But in about 10 minutes, you can address all of that. We're going to go talk about this for a year.
No, what they're going to do is take a year trying to find every possible avenue for inserting their asinine political ideology into something it doesn't belong in.
Yeah, and enrich themselves along the way.
Well, that's part of their political ideology.
That's exactly right. We're taking a break right now. It's top of the hour. It's noon across the great state of Mississippi. It's Fox News, SuperTalk News coming up next. Then Rankin Sherling, Associate Director of the Ole Miss Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. Stay with us.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of a Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We welcome now Rankin Sherling, Associate Director of the UM Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. Rankin, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
So we've talked several times before, and every time we do, you've always got some news to share with us of some things going on at the Declaration Center. So what's the latest?
Well, the latest is our student numbers are really high. We've got a couple of new classes that we're teaching this semester for the first time. One is an upper-level seminar specifically on the Declaration of Independence. So if you take that class, you will spend the entire semester on the Declaration of Independence itself, the intellectual antecedents that go back all the way to Jerusalem and Athens and Rome. These things were braided together to create a uniquely American thing, which Thomas Jefferson just said was meant to be an expression of the American mind at the time. Not his mind, but an expression of the American mind. And then the last part of that class will be on the effect of the Declaration of Independence on America and on the world. It's going to be an incredible class. And then the second new class we have is called Literature, Liberty, and Tyranny. So you take the founding principles and then you apply them to works like 1984, Animal Farm both of those by George Orwell, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and that will be taught by one of our best teachers, Scott Morris, who in addition to studying under two of the greatest anti-communist thinkers in the 20th century, Leszek Kolakowski and Francois Furet. Those were his teachers at the University of Chicago. He's an Ole Miss guy, but he did graduate work at the University of Chicago. He's also a novelist and has taught creative writing at NYU. So he'll be teaching that. He'll be taking these two parts of kind of his unique brain. He knows political philosophy really well, but he's also a novelist and knows literature really well. And we'll be combining those two into this class. It's a really unique class, and we're excited about it. So that's really great. We're on track to break our the most students we've had in one semester is 160. We're on track to break that. It's possible we'll get to 200. We'll just see how many freshmen we get when they roll into town in a few weeks. And then, of course, Gad Saad moving here next week. He's got the number one I think it's the number one nonfiction book in the world right now. It's definitely in the United States. Suicidal Empathy.
Yep.
And so that's a huge thing for our center, for Ole Miss, for Oxford, and for the state of Mississippi. The only thing that I can really think of that's like this, that's ever happened to Mississippi is, I think Square Books started in 1979, but Willie Morris, the former editor of Harper Magazine and Yazoo City native, was hired to be a writer in residence here at Ole Miss. And those two things really put Ole Miss on the map as far as writing. That is eventually what brought John Grisham here. I know he went to law school here, but then John Grisham came. And since that time, really, literally since 1979, 1980, Oxford has been kind of a mecca for writers. I'm aware that Faulkner was here and, before that. Yeah. But there weren't people from all over the world coming here to study writing until about 1980, because you had people that are literally on the forefront of the thought about writing and creating writing itself here in Oxford. And now we have somebody that is going to be here who is on the forefront of intellectual and political discourse. And I'm excited to see how that happens. You may disagree with Gad, of course, but you will, if you're honest, if you're intellectually honest, you do have to wrestle with his data and evidence and conclusions. So this is a really exciting time. Who knows what's going to happen this coming year or years to come with Gad here, but I expect great things to happen for our center, for the city of Oxford, for the state of Mississippi and the University of Mississippi, because he's here.
It's a huge get to have Gad joining the staff there and being a resident there at Ole Miss and affiliated, of course, with the Declaration Center. He could have gone anywhere, as you know, right. And he was in high demand. He was sought after just because of his value, his intellect, his knowledge. He's kind of a modern day Greek philosopher. You could equate him to Socrates, if you will. I mean, he's that kind of a thinker, and he just thinks about stuff the rest of us say, well, I never really thought about that. And that's what philosophers do, right? And then, that makes sense. And his book, Suicidal Empathy, I think you could probably define it in that sense. He just points out a lot of things that the average person hasn't sat down and really thought through. And he puts it in, I think, really understandable and somewhat entertaining style. Pretty cool.
I totally agree. I think he because he's a scientist, he is able to use empirical data to back up a lot of traditional norms and things that a lot of people just know, but they don't know how to defend it because you have people who are trying to chip away at traditional norms. And there's a huge, by the way, that attempt to and act of chipping away at traditional norms, that's part of an old communist Marxist plan that started in the 19-teens and 20s. I mean, I can go through the whole history of that if you'd like a little bit later. But what Gad is able to do so well is relate to normal people, because a lot of scientists and academics are not able to explain things at on a level that your regular old guy, no matter how intelligent or educated, is just not going to know, because they're not going to know the jargon. GAD gets rid of the jargon, gets to the meat and the heart of the matter, and backs it up with evidence. And anybody who's intellectually honest is going to have to deal with that. You can try to dismiss it, but if you're honest, it's going to be hard to dismiss those.
Yeah, I agree.
That evidence that he presents.
So, what's unique about this country, and certainly this applies to the Declaration of Independence Center at Ole Miss, is that it still applies. That we may be, I don't know, the only country in the world whose founding documents like this are still in effect, are still adhered to, are still used to govern our country. I'm reminded of G.K. Chesterton, the British author and philosopher, who, upon visiting this country, you recall that, I want to say back in the 1920s, he said, America is unique because it's founded on a creed. And that creed is, of course, embedded, enshrined in our Declaration of Independence. And that very simply says we believe our rights come from God, and that government is charged with protecting those rights. And that still applies today, though we argue about it a lot in our political domain. But that still applies. That's unique, and we need to recognize that. I know you guys emphasize that at the center there.
We do. When you said that just a minute ago, it reminded me of Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, who very embarrassingly kind of went on a rant about how crazy it was for some Americans to still think that their rights came from God and not from government. Yeah. He seems to be completely unaware that Jefferson and other people wrote that, because if rights come from government, then we don't have the legal sort of argument to separate from Britain. Yeah. If they come from God, then we do, and the Brits can just, back off. Just like the level of, he's not an unintelligent man, but he is undereducated on this issue, and that's why we need to study the founding documents and the context in which they were created. Understanding that they're not perfect, but look what they're compared to. Yeah. All the great things that have come after this, after our founding documents, they're inspired by our founding documents.
That's exactly right.
The outrage or the faux outrage of all these people who hate America or say they hate America, they do that because they're basing it on what we think should be the case here in America. Right. Okay, we haven't done it perfectly, but we've done it really well.
We got a break right here. Rankin, if you can hang on, we'll keep the discussion going. Sure. Great. Rankin Sherling, Associate Director of the UM Declaration of Independence Center. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
This program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are visiting with Rankin Sherling, Associate Director of the Ole Miss Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. So, this country is unique. Its founding documents are unique. They need to be studied. They need to be learned. They need to be understood. We need to be educating young people at all levels during their education about the value of these documents, that their uniqueness in the world. It still seems like, Rankin, that we stand out in that respect. I'm looking at, and Rhino and I talk about it a lot, crazy stuff that happens in England, in the UK, thinking, well, they've been at this civilized Western society for a long time. Why are they having these problems, locking people up for saying things that somebody else got offended by? As an example, you would think that they've had enough time to figure out that's really not a good way to govern, but they seem to be going backwards in that respect. And we've got to protect against those sorts of invasions and government overreaches here.
We do. It's interesting that you brought up the British example, because back in, so I'm a historian, this is typical of dealing with historians. You kind of go back to history. When the Constitution was created, it was written in the summer of 1787. Then there's this whole period of time where they've got to figure out if we're going to adopt it, if we're going to ratify it. And there was a group of people who wanted to adopt the Constitution as it was, and there was a group of people who didn't want to, called anti-federalists. And they felt like this was a vast overreach of central government power. And one of the things that they said was, look, you're going to, there's a group of them, but some of them said this, you're going to lose these rights. You're going to lose the right to keep and bear arms. You're going to lose all these rights. And masterfully, the Federalists said, actually, we're going to guarantee those rights. And so it's more complicated than that. But eventually, all of those objections became the Bill of Rights, guaranteed, in our Constitution when it's in its ratified form. All of those Bill of Rights are related to the British Bill of Rights, which are not in a written constitution. And so the insistence on Americans of getting this in writing and guaranteeing it allows for freedom of speech and freedom of assembly in a way that the British just don't have it.
Yeah.
And so it's just, if you give our forefounders, just our founding fathers, just a little bit of credit, you'll say, wow, they were right to make sure that was in writing. They saw that this could happen 250 years ago, and we're seeing an example literally this summer in Britain, the mother country, some of the effects of them not getting it in writing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's really cool. People should study this. Unfortunately, it's not taught in schools very much, So
that's a question I have for you, Rankin.
We're taught that our founding fathers owned slaves, and therefore they should not be listened to.
Yeah,
they're canceled. It's canceled.
Yeah. Are we pointing this out as part of the content in the classrooms at the Declaration Center? Are we pointing out just how unique this is? Our founding documents, our codified principles, as you point out, different than any other country, and how you referred to Great Britain as the mother country. That's true. I mean, our founding was inspired by what was a bad situation in the UK. And they said, we got enough. And they left. They came over here and said, we got a better idea of how to run a country. I mean, I'm simplifying it, but that's essentially what happened. Are we pointing out that process, I guess, that distinction in the classroom?
At the Declaration of Independence Center, all of our classes do that.
Good.
We basically founded on the idea. So we are explicitly conservative in this sense. We think that the founding principles of the United States of America were good, and they should be conserved or preserved. For that, we get a lot of hatred, because for many years now, decades actually, it's kind of been a snowball effect of, well, the United States is not good, and then it gets worse than that, and then, the founding fathers weren't good, and then eventually, it was really just a big, beautiful con. The Declaration of Independence the Declaration of Independence, while beautifully written, was just sleight of hand so that oppression of Native Americans and African Americans and women could continue uninterrupted. So that's literally what some scholars write. So yes, when we look back at the founding documents, it's sometimes for the very first time that students are like, oh my gosh, some of this bad stuff did happen, but look at all the good. This is for the very first time. So we see people's minds blown every class period, basically.
It's incredible, and it needs to be pointed out and understood. And something we talk about on the program here that you referenced a second ago is that we actually allow you to criticize and complain and condemn your country, and we could argue that the conservative position on that is that we will fight for your right to disagree with us and to condemn, complain, and criticize your country. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. That used to be what the Democrats or the left insisted was their defining characteristic. Whereas, not too long ago, I was talking to a guy who said, "Well, I'm fiscally conservative, but I'm socially progressive or liberal." And I said, "Well, what exactly do you mean by that?" He's like, "Well, I like to balance the checkbook, and so we can agree on that." But he said, "Well, I'm about live and let live. Everybody should be able to have their opinion and live how they want to." I said, "Man, that makes you more conservative now. At least in academia, for sure. The right to express yourself is being insisted upon by the rare conservative academics that there are in the academy today."
Yeah. No, that's so true. But these are the things that have made this country great, as you know. It's those founding principles that have miraculously endured, withstood the test of time. So it's amazing how brilliant our founders were to devise and conceive of these founding principles that, given the time period, given their age for sure, but again, still apply today.
Yeah. So one of the things that we teach about is all of my classes will have a comparison of the French Revolution and the American Revolution. And what you see, one of the differences is our founding fathers seem to have a very, very good read on human nature.
Yeah.
Whereas the French revolutionaries were very idealistic and far more so than our founding fathers were. We realized that man has fallen and it needs checks and balances. And so I think that really has a lot to do with why our system has endured and why they've been proven right time after time, because they believed that there was a human nature, which a lot of people on the left do not believe that now, and that it was predictable and it would act in certain ways, and they set up checks and balances against that.
Totally. Yeah. So are you seeing any interest in the university landscape across the country of creating similar programs like this, similar departments?
There was a real kind of flurry of those that started in maybe 24. The state of Ohio created a series of civics centers at each of its public universities. So that's good. Then there's Hamilton College or the Hamilton Center down at the University of Florida. And there are some older ones. There's one at Princeton. There's one at Stanford, the Hoover Institution. We think ours is unique, though. We're the only one that's explicitly about conserving the founding documents and are afraid to say that we're conservative.
Well, maybe it's a trend, huh? Maybe it's a trend.
We're hoping, we're hoping this is a trend. But if we can learn how to do this here in Mississippi, not just at Ole Miss, but throughout Mississippi, then it can be replicated in Alabama.
I agree.
If it can be replicated in Alabama, it can be done in Louisiana. If we can do that,
appreciate it, Rankin. We got to go, man. Enjoy talking to you. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Coming right back, folks.
Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We got to give some tickets away. You want to go ahead and knock that out, Rhino? For Toto coming to the Brandon Amphitheater.
Yeah, the legendary rock band Toto's coming to the Brandon Amphitheater on August the 5th, right around the corner. Toto's going to be joined by Christopher Cross and the Romantics. And you can get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com, but we're giving you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Toto. All you got to do is be the 14th person to text us Rosanna to the C Spire text line. That's 601-879-4395. Text Rosanna to win.
There you go. Rosanna, one of the band's famous tunes, of course. Lots of speculation, as there often is, about songs, especially rock songs, as to what the underlying meaning is of that particular tune, Rosanna. Many believe that it referred to Rosanna Arquette, who was kind of a famous actress during that time period. But not sure that anything has ever been determined and ascertained and confirmed from any of the band members.
We don't double up. Since that one went so quick, we'll give away a second pair of tickets. So if you are the 12th person to text in, hold the line, you'll get another pair of tickets.
There you go. Cool. So the president, by the way, this is hot off the press, says Iran is going to get a beating. Wow. Apparently there are some escalations occurring in the region as we speak here. And so, just looking through kind of the news report, this just out, literally about 5 minutes ago. So they are launching surprise strikes at U.S. targets again. Tensions are escalating. Man, that is right from the president's social media, Truth Social. They are going to get a beating, says the president. Well, I sure do hope and wish that we can get this thing resolved. And I know I've said that many times. I don't know what else to say exactly. I totally believe that the president is right in that they can never have a nuclear weapon, they being Iran, and that it is acceptable and proper for this country to ensure that they don't. And that's why he launched the attacks back in February. But at this point, I'm concerned about it lingering. I don't think there's any secret there. The president is clearly frustrated that we have not been able to achieve resolution to this conflict. So I don't think that there's any secret there. And it just drags on, and of course he makes it clear that they are not to be trusted, that they're not negotiating in good faith, but he also says that they desperately want a deal. And I hope that's the case. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has reported that at this point they don't even want to talk, they being the regime. And their country is being ravaged by outrageous inflation, shortages of everyday goods, not enough oil, even in their own country, to keep the place running. But they insist on standing their ground and not being willing to peacefully, at this point, turn over their nuclear material. And I don't think we're going to stop. And I talked about this yesterday. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana said we need to keep it up until we do, in fact, extract the nuclear enriched uranium in the country and not let up. And he said that may take several more months, and that could mean elevated gas prices and inflation. But we have to be honest about the political fallout from that with the midterms approaching. And some recent polls show Americans are still concerned about inflation, and they are now blaming this president. So, you know, as you know, Rhino, people, when it comes to politics, have extremely short memories. It's a what have you done for me lately world. But by the way, that's not just politics. That's business as well. And I know folks out there listening to me, it doesn't matter all the great things you did through the years. What matters is how you're doing right now. That's what people are focused on. And again, that doesn't matter if it's politics or it's business or anything, sports, anything else. You're graded for the most part on the basis of how you are performing today. You certainly can make the case with your historical performance. That's your resume. That's your CV. That's your calling card. That is an explanation and a reference and evidence of your qualifications. But people want to know, what are you going to do for me today and in the future? That's why I think that political figures and candidates who tend to dwell on the past, I mean dwell on it, not just point it out as qualification, but really dwell on it, I don't think are in tune with what people want to know is, what are you going to do to fix today's problem? So right now, voters are blaming the president for inflation, seemingly forgetting what Joe Biden did with respect to terrible policy that ignited inflation in this country that's never gone away. None of that's reversed. I never thought it would. Deflation is the term used to define a reduction of prices from some price point in the past, month over month, for example. That's deflation. We still are enduring inflation, just not at the rate at which it was increasing during the Biden administration. We're still witnessing the price of stuff increase. And so polls are showing that the president and by connection, Republicans are being saddled with the blame for inflation. I think that's short-sighted, honestly. But I think also people are saying that, well, it's this war that it caused the price of oil to go up. It was getting under control. The president, based on the information that was being provided him from his inner circle, I think the feeling was they're getting too dang close to achieving some sort of nuclear capability, and that's when the decision was made to target Iran back in February. And I think it was widely believed we'd be over by now and moving on. But they're stubborn. They don't care. Clearly, they don't care about the hell that it is imposing on their own countrymen. What, 80 million people, I think, if I'm not mistaken? That Iran's like the size of California, Texas, Florida, virtually put together, and in a small footprint in terms of the geography of the country and the area of the country. But it is a densely populated nation, as is most of that region. India would be the other one. What's the population of Iran? 80, 90 million?
93 million.
Okay. Well, California's 39. What's Texas, like 28?
Texas 30? Is 31. Florida's 23.
There you go. So it's about the same, right?
Yeah, when you add up California, Texas, and Florida, they're about 1 million people more than Iran.
Okay. What you're talking about, 93 million people total. So 93 versus 92. They're virtually the size of I don't know where New York fits into there. If it's smaller than, I think it may be smaller than Florida now, right? So California, Texas, Florida, New York, in that order, the most populated states, I believe.
New York State's 20 million.
There you go. So bottom line is, Iran is as big as our 3 most populated states combined, aggregated. But think about the land of Florida, Texas, and California, considerably larger, so they're sort of crammed in there. Bottom line is, this regime's decisions is causing problems for the citizens of Iran. Coming right back.
Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
One day and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside the darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore. With a brave heart, free lover's soul, come ride with me to the distant shore. We won't hesitate, break down the garden gate.
I'm just thinking about this Anthony Fauci deal. I don't know, Rhino. Can you think of another American that caused so much damage and harm to this country other than that guy who literally let his own arrogance, his hubris, his obsession with, his starvation for attention?
I feel like I could make an argument for Obama and Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think those would be sound arguments, but my money's on Fauci at this point. He you talk about how in this country we have checks and balances, right? We don't live in a monarchy. We don't have dictators. We don't live in a tyrannical system. But this was a case where, honestly, this was so new, so novel. Hit us by surprise to a great extent. A lot of people relied on that guy. You would hope that you could, given his position, his expertise. But then you realize that all of that got clouded, now we know, with his obsession with fame. And it's like making the right calls and delivering.
Well, also, society got lulled to sleep with the notion of institutions and experts and journalists and all of these people that for generations, the fringe elements of society were calling it out, but mainstream moderate society ignored all of the faults within these institutions, within journalism, within the ranks of experts.
Yeah.
Because credentialism was the way to go. And in an increasingly smaller and smaller world, due to the spread freely of information, even the average Joe can go, hang on. Why are they considered an expert? Why is this institution still an institution? Why does anybody give a flip what these journalists have to say? And it's not wide swaths of the population that have come to this understanding, that have come to grips with the fact that you've been lied to the majority of your life, but it's a much larger percentage of the population than it was before COVID when it was just the fringes.
I think that's right.
Because when you have medical experts coming out and saying, you got to stand 6 feet away from everybody, you got to wash your hands for 2 minutes every hour on the hour, you got to mask, you got to do this, you got to do that, you can't be near anybody. But if you're going to protest, all that goes out the window because protesting for my feelings is more important than the crap I was just spewing, claiming to be scientific.
So true. But again, I point out people were relying on him, and he knew that. You know, he also bragged about in early 2020, he recorded this in his diary, how much he was able to make the stock market drop. That's when he came out and said that COVID was 10 times more deadly than the average flu, normal flu. And that caused the stock market. I remember it. Who doesn't that had any investments in stocks? We all witnessed the 1,000-point loss days and the big sell-off. Of course you would, because it was the unknown. And we're listening to this guy that we thought knew more, or at least supposed to.
Trust takes a long time to build back up, but not a whole heck of a lot of time to lose. And the experts like Fauci, the institutions like academia, the media run by a bunch of left-leaning, worthless, mealy-mouthed journalists, all of these institutions have lost trust with the American people and with society at large, and they did it to themselves.
I think that's right. I agree with you.
Because they got too big a head, they got too big for their britches, and Mr. I'm Science Fauci couldn't get it through his thick skull that nobody gave a rat's rear end about him and his legacy, but he spent all this time writing in his diary so he could have his memoirs and sell for millions.
And just so defiant and arrogant about it. It's just sickening, and I'm glad he's being grilled.
It's the condescension of worthless liberals.
You're right. And you know, it's good that he's being grilled. And it's a little bit of karma going on. You idiot. You used the government systems to record this stuff, your braggadocious style, and now you're getting called out on it. Good. Out of here today. Back tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.